Shalom Eastern Shore. I am Rabbi David Tokajer with Congregation Maim Chaim, the Eastern Shore's Messianic Synagogue, and I'm bringing you your daily dose of living water. In Numbers 32, we read the accounts of the 2.5 tribes of Israel, Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, who looked at the territory that God had allowed Israel to conquer on the east side of the Jordan and approached Moses to ask for this land to be their inheritance. The Torah says these tribes had large herds and flocks. They saw the territory was ideal for livestock and they wanted to live there rather than in the land flowing with milk and honey. If you read the text, you'll see Moses kind of has a bit of a conniption over it. We read Moses' initial response to them beginning with Numbers 32, verse 6. Moses replied to the sons of Gad and Reuben, "Should your countrymen go to war while you dwell here? Why do you dishearten Bnei Israel from going across to the land that Adonai has given to them? Your fathers did this when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to look over the land." And continue with verse 14. "Now, look, here you stand in the place of your fathers as a brood of sinful men, to add more to Adonai's great wrath against Israel. If you turn away from him, he will repeat again, leaving this people in the wilderness, you being the cause of this people's destruction." Every time I read this passage, I can almost literally feel the emotion Moses is feeling. After 40 years in the wilderness, 40 years of missing out on the fullness of God's promises to Israel because of the nation's rejection of the promised land, here comes these fools trying to pull the same mess all over again. But here's the thing, the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, what they were really doing was selling themselves short on God's vision for their lives. The promised land was plenty big enough for all 12 tribes. It had plenty of beautiful land for livestock, but even more importantly, it was God's vision and plan for Israel. But Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh just couldn't quite get there. They had the typical grass is greener on the other side mentality. They were saying, I know God said the land is good, but it can't possibly be better than this. Truth is though, if you're anything like me, you've done this in your own walk with the Lord too. I have known pretty much my whole life that my calling was to be a Messianic Jewish rabbi. But my father's a Messianic Jewish rabbi, and my father-in-law is a Messianic Jewish rabbi as well. And I had spent a lot of time with other Messianic Jewish rabbis and saw the pain and anguish that can go along with being in ministry. I saw the toil it can take. I saw the way people can treat you when you're in ministry. I saw the hurts, the backstabbing, the long hours, the middle of the night emergency phone calls, and so much more. And for years, I didn't want anything to do with it. I tried and tried and tried to run from my calling, from the promises of God for my life. The territory I found myself in at the moment seemed so much better than what I thought was on the other side. I'm sure you too have very similar stories in your life, but like Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, we're simply selling ourselves short on what God has in store for our lives and the great things God desires to do through us. It is time that we take off the grass is greener on the other side glasses and open our eyes to God's vision for our lives. Shalom.